We are back with the chairman of the White House National Economic Council and the president's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. Larry, welcome. I know you got in late last night from Canada from these G7 talks. The president called the Canadian prime minister weak and dishonest. What exactly did he say to get this kind of response from the president?
Well, to be honest with you, Prime Minister Trudeau, who, by the way, I respect, I've worked with him in good faith, getting through a good communique on Friday and Saturday. So he holds a press conference. The president's barely out of there on the plane to North Korea, and he starts insulting us. You know, he starts talking about U.S. is insulting Canada. We, Canada, are not going to be pushed around.
He was talking about the U.S. tariffs.
That's correct. Well, and in general, okay, it was an attack on the president. We're going to have retaliatory tariffs. Now, these are things that Prime Minister said before, basically, but he didn't say them before after a successful G7 communique where President Trump and the others all worked in good faith to put a statement together, which, by the way, almost nobody expected to happen. In fact, reporters were asking me before the trip whether the president was going to show up at all. He did. He negotiated. He directed his team, myself and others. We worked it out. We used good language that was acceptable.
And then the president reneged on that G7 statement.
No, I'm sorry. And then Trudeau decided to attack the president. That's the key point. And yes, you know, if you attack this president, he's going to fight back. But here's the key point, Margaret. President is going to negotiate with Kim of North Korea in Singapore. It is a historic negotiation. And there is no way this president is not going to stand strong, number one. He's not going to allow other people to suddenly take pot shots at him hours before that summit. And number two, Trudeau should have known better.
But why pick a public fight with a friend to impress an enemy?
Well, hey, who picked the fight? I'm arguing Trudeau picked the fight.
Did you believe he was going to step away from those retaliatory tariffs? Had he promised you privately that that's what was going to happen?
Who?
Trudeau. You're saying he broke his word, that he publicly came out and said things.
Let me say, in the bilateral between President Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau, I was in that room. It was a very successful, calm, friendly, respectful bilateral. And we made great progress in moving towards a deal between the U.S. and Canada and perhaps NAFTA as a whole. It was very successful. That is another reason why I think Trudeau betrayed Trump and the G7. I mean, look, they put together this good consensus. The Western allies were together. It was peaceful. They were good citizens. It was all in good faith. What's not in good faith is when you leave there and you fly out of there and the host Canadian Prime Minister starts taking whacks at you, pot shots at you on the eve of this Korean summit. President Trump had no alternative, in my opinion, but to express his opinion that he's going to pull out. To pull out of the communique.
But
that's
when
what
it
he
comes
said.
to NAFTA, which you said there was progress on, you've said publicly the president is not going to pull out of NAFTA.
That's correct.
But then the president said he may broker a side bilateral agreement with Canada and Mexico.
That's correct.
How do you do both things at once? How is that not withdrawing from NAFTA?
Oh, no. We won't withdraw from NAFTA. We are heavy into negotiations. And the negotiation will either be bilateral or they'll be trilateral.
So despite
one way or the other.
You still think you can get a trade deal with Canada?
Well, I don't know that, Margaret. I mean, I want to say I don't know. Because I think, again, Trudeau's very unfortunate statements, his betrayal. He betrayed Trump. Can I ask? He betrayed the whole G7 by attacking right after that. But how he said the same thing he said
before, which was that the tariffs were insulting and that they'd follow through with the July 1st tariffs.
You want to say that right after a successful G7 meeting? Is that necessary? Seriously? Where's the good faith? Where's the optimism? People came together at that meeting. I'm in there working with the heads of state. It was my great pleasure representing the president. The president was there. We're putting words on paper, we're making adjustments, we're making compromises, and we're coming out with a document that we can accept. Most people thought that wouldn't happen. So that happens, and instead of being a good push to the Singapore-North Korean talks, Trudeau decides to come out and play to domestic political consumption and take potshots at the American president who is representing the rest of the world. That's just not fair play.
Why the president called for Russia to rejoin the G8? Was that just meant as a provocation?
No, I mean, they were in the G8. It was the G8 for many years.
Right.
And
then they were kicked out after invading part of Ukraine and annexing Crimea.
So be it. Perhaps, as by the way, many foreign policy scholars agree with Trump on this. Not all, but many. We have to do business with Russia.
Sure, but why after G7?
We used to, because it was that meeting that Russia used to be invited to. It was the G8 for many years.
But the head of U.S. intelligence says that Vladimir Putin is trying to undermine the rule of law, Western ideals, and democratic norms. So why invite him back to the very type of alliance he's trying to blow up?
I think Dan Coates was correct in his accusations, but that doesn't mean you can't do business with them, okay? I think, they're part of the world story. They are a power. They're a military power. They're not an economic power. And can I just switch back, Margaret? Look. President Trump spent 2 days, this is something dear to my heart, talking to these ministers, these heads of state, about free trade, ending tariffs, ending tariff barriers, ending subsidies, stopping trade wars, moving towards fairness and unfair trading practices. We're the fastest growing economy in the G7, and he's got a vision here. He's probably going to be the best trade reformer in several decades in the world scene. Why wouldn't he want to do?
Larry,
why would anyone want to undercut him?
I want to have you come back and explain how all of this is going to add up to the kind of economic growth you're projecting. But we got to leave it here for this moment.